Welcome to Deccan Dialogues, a platform that offers a space to public intellectuals from across the country and across the globe to critically examine the issues confronting our nation and to discuss alternative pathways. This program will focus on current issues in polity, economy, and society. It is an attempt to bring our audience a calm, informed public dialogue on issues concerning us on a regular basis. These issues will be brought to you through a conversation between two prominent public intellectuals, Parakala Prabhakar and Mohan Guruswamy. Both of them are trained economists and have been actively engaged in discourses on public policy. The two topics that would be discussed today are fall of the rupee and symbolism of Murmu. Welcome once again.
So we live in interesting times these days. Many things are happening in the country. But above all, the most thing on which everybody is engrossed now is the fall of the rupee.
Yeah, it's not interesting, it's worrisome actually, very concerned. What is more concerned, what is more worrisome, Mohan, is that the government as well as the mainstream media is trying to tell us that all is okay, all is well. What is happening to the rupee, its breaching of 80 rupees is nothing to worry about much, because it's more to do with the international developments, war in Ukraine, and the oil price hike, and the kind of constraints that the international financial markets are experiencing. This is the reason. Although all these people are telling us that the fundamentals of the Indian economy are quite strong and nothing to worry about, but I have my own misgivings. I'll tell you what my misgivings are after you tell us your thoughts about what's happening to the rupee.
I find this very interesting that this issue has caught the imagination of people, even ordinary people who have very little to do with foreign money or the value of a rupee, because they're not dealing with international trade or dealing with dollars or whatever. But it has caught the imagination. I was talking to a laborer today in the house in front who was building a house, and I asked him what his wages were. So he said, no, we have to increase now because the rupee is falling.
Oh, really?
So I said, how does it concern you? Has the price of rice gone up? Or he said, no, rupee is falling means we have to be affected by it. So it's caught the imagination that something serious has happened, and it's equated with our sense of honor. Our rupee is falling. It's a symbol of our sovereignty.
Prestige of the country.
Prestige. So I think people who made prestige of the country a prime issue and equated value of the rupee in the global market with quality of leadership and strength of leadership are now having to answer these questions, which to me is...
Because I remember very well, see, most of the time throughout our history, rupee has been falling, has been against the dollar, against the basket of hard currencies. It's been falling. Very few times it has risen, but we have seen a secular decline over the years. But then I remember very well in 2013, it was the present Prime Minister, who was then the Chief Minister of Gujarat and who was the aspiring would-be Prime Minister. He was the one who went hammer and tongs to politicize it. That time the rupee breached only the 64 rupee a dollar mark, but then Mr. Modi went on saying that this is the result of incompetent leadership. It's the result of corrupt leadership.
I think the word is used was
Nikamma, corrupt leadership, incompetent leadership, and falling of rupee means that the falling of government, falling of our prestige, and also said that a day should come, and it will come soon, that when 1 rupee is equivalent to $1.
You know, interesting, no serious economist or no professional economist ever said anything about the value of the rupee. Everybody knew that if it depreciated more, your exports would go up. There was a relationship there. But then candidate Modi was accompanied by great personalities like Ramdev, Sri, who said, I'm looking forward to the day when it will be 40, and Guru Murthy, who also said, you know, devaluation of rupee is a symbol of our weakness, our importance. You know, he used that word.
Yeah.
And you know, these people should be hauled up now.
You
I
see,
think, where are you now?
What I feel, Mohan, is that was the time when voodoo economics is introduced into the economic discourse of India.
Not only voodoo economics, it's just voodooism.
Yeah.
All kinds of voodooisms are coming up into our discourse and dialogue. And it has become impossible ever since all this has come, and the explosion of social media, explosion of independent channels of TV, supposedly independent, but actually leaning very clearly in one direction. All kinds of voodooism has come into place.
That's precisely my point when I said the mainstream media, both the print media as well as the television media, is trying to tell us there is nothing much to worry about the fall of rupee. Now, it's recovered. Now, the recovery of rupee between yesterday and today, in today's papers, it's made into a huge issue by saying that, you know, rupee is clawing back. Now, I just tried to see how much it clawed back. It clawed back from 80.05 or 80.05 back to 79.94.
Clinging at straws, literally.
You know,
You know.
is that really clawing back? Now, that is after the Reserve Bank of India had spent money through its nose.
$40 billion.
$40 billion is spent just to see that the rupee doesn't cross that kind of a psychological barrier, although it crossed. But then it just was brought back by, you know, less than 6 paisa.
True. But you know, this is a ratchet mechanism. It's never going to come back. Don't
Now,
anticipate that day.
That makes us wonder, what if the Reserve Bank of India had not spent $40 billion, where would our rupee have been
I was doing some back of the envelope numbers when I was coming here. I think, you know, we were looking at 95,
Yes.
because at that level, incremental dollops of dollars
Yes.
intervening
Yeah.
makes big difference.
That reminds me, you know, sometime back there was a forecast by IMF. IMF said that if everything is normal, if it is in course, Indian rupee might touch 94 rupees in 2029. Now, what you have estimated, if RBI had not intervened, it would have breached even that point, which otherwise it would have breached in 2029.
You know, just as we are focused on this, the underlying conditions which make this happen year after year, decade after decade. You know, you and I would remember the days we bought dollars at 8 rupees.
Yeah.
8 rupees to a dollar, and watched it go in the last 40 years, 50 years. Go.
In 86, when I went abroad to study to LSE, I bought dollars at 16 rupees a dollar.
First time I went abroad, I bought it at 8 rupees.
Yeah.
You know, but we've seen it now at 80, 10 times. But this is a natural condition in many parts of the world, except in a few stable economies where they manage their trade quite well. More than managing the trade, the current account deficit. Now, if you're coming with a trade deficit of $190 billion a year as we come this year, you've got to fill that gap. You either fill it up by FDI or FII coming in on short-term basis or remittances. Now, all three are dwindling. Foreign investment went out in the last, net export was something like 22 billion. FDI has dropped by 16 billion. Remittances is also dropping because Middle East is in turmoil. So remittances for the first time have increased from America because our rich NRI relatives are sending back money to their impoverished parents here, and the Middle East workers are not sending back so much because there are not enough jobs to have. So I think we are looking down the barrel here, not looking at current account deficit is going to be 1.5% this year. And if you keep doing that, you're going to devalue the rupee unless you keep intervening. And how far can you intervene? We've already lost 40 billion from
That's
reserves.
right. Yes.
And you can't go on doing that all the time. And if you intervene too much, then other things will stop.
Oh, first of all, our foreign currency account, foreign currency assets and reserves are going to dwindle if you go on intervening. RBI had already spent $40 billion on this. But let's for a while focus on what are the implications of this steep fall of rupee for the Indian economy.
Prices of everything is going to go up.
Yeah.
Everything. Because if price of fuel goes up, price of wheat will go up. So everything is interconnected. And fuel accounts for almost half of our imports.
Oh, it's huge.
Huge.
It's almost about, we are talking about $120 billion.
And then, ironically enough, petroleum products are our biggest exports.
Yeah.
Our refineries are churning out processing petrol because they can't sell here because of the differential prices the government has. They're exporting it out. So that's our biggest export also. So we are linked with the petroleum economy. And as long as
and then the downstream of the transportation and the essential commodities and vegetables, milk and
there's no escape
across the board.
There's no escape for anybody.
Yes.
Rupee is devaluing or depreciating, everybody bears the burden. Then export margins also reduce. First 1 year, 6 months, you might have had old work in process and you're going to push it out. But new imports, because imports form a very important part of our exports.
Exactly. Yes.
Of material. So those costs are going to go up, and therefore makes you less competitive, and therefore exporters will all come to the government. I've actually seen people, exporter associations come and say, please devalue the rupee. This is not the real value. So they will demand, exporters will say, devalue more. And so this will constantly go on unless you start balancing your trade. And what we have seen is that the people who export, the people who import are not the people who export either. Some industries, is only one-way traffic. For instance, automobile industry. Many parts are still imported. The Mercedes-Benz car is 100% imported. But there are no exports. So you've got to look at these industries very carefully. Earlier we used to have a system of, timetable. When will you become export neutral? And we were required companies to have on their balance sheets how much they exported, how much they imported. So you'd have a company-wide balance sheet. All that has been given away in the name of liberalization. Liberalization doesn't mean you beggar your country. In the last 10 years, we have given China a trade surplus of $800 billion. Just China. We've given the Chinese almost $1 trillion to their wealth. You can't continue like this and say, I'm competing with China. Interdependence is yes, but you must also export your way out of trouble. And unless you export, there's no free lunches. You can't keep importing. If you keep importing and not export, you're going to have devaluation.
Exactly.
So tell the people the truth.
Let's explore the other implications of this steep fall, Mohan. Look at the foreign institutional investors. They are voting with their feet.
Absolutely.
They're going away. Now, it is not necessarily linked. The government wants us to believe that it is linked to the Russian Ukraine conflict.
And the US interest rate.
To me, I just looked at the data. Ukraine conflict started towards the end of Feb this year, but the dwindling and the outflow of the equity, foreign equity, began in September. September to February, it was about $25 billion, and after that, it of course, after the Ukraine conflict and the gradual fall of rupee, it accelerated added another $40 billion. Now today we stand between last year September and today we have seen about $61 billion of foreign institutional investors taking out their money from the Indian economy. This is one. The second one, if you look at, although the government again wants us to believe that the fundamentals are very strong of the Indian economy, now in what way can we really call these fundamentals strong when you have June, the data is out for June unemployment, we have lost 13 million jobs in June alone. Not only in the rural sector, I mean predominantly in the rural sector, but then we have also lost 2.5 million jobs in the salaried sector,
True.
which is huge. Now 13 million jobs lost in 1 month is staggering, and this is the highest, Mohan, believe me, this is the highest for any non-COVID month in the last 3-4 years. And the labor market has shrunk. The labor participation ratio, labor force participation ratio figures are also out for May, June. It has shrunk. Today, if you look at the unemployment rate in India, out of every 100 people who are in the working age, only 36 are employed. Now, given this data that is available to us now in the public domain, how do you want me to believe that the fundamentals of the Indian economy are quite strong?
That's because there are two economies functioning here. We've got one economy the size of a middle-sized European country sitting on top and totally engrossed with itself, in terms of value of the rupee and various things, value of the Sensex.
So, which means the Bombay Club economy.
Bombay Club economy, whatever you call it. And you got this big vast economy, which is scratching around. If you go by the UNDP definition of $2 a day, then 68% of Indians are below poverty line. It's something we will not admit. Our poverty line is an arbitrary poverty line of 2,200 calories a day. So basically, theoretically, if I put 1 kilo of wheat outside your door every day, then you're not poor anymore. You're not hungry either. We know that's not enough. But that is the calculation we have. So when you calculate and you're proud of yourself that I've only got 19% poverty, your poverty is 68%. And your Gini equivalent coefficient is one among the highest in the world, worse than Brazil now, worse than in Russia, which are highly inequal.
So you have falling standards of living. You have falling rupee. You have massive job losses in June, both in informal sector as well as the salaried sector.
And combined with food inflation of 30%.
Food inflation, and it is the RBI's range, the tolerable range which they talk about 2% to 6%. Now it is now 7.2% inflation, it's slightly come down from 7.8 or 7.9, but then still it is more than the RBI's range. Absolutely. Between 2 and 6. Another thing that has come to the public domain, the data, is that the credit offtake in May, June is far below expectations. It's very, very damp. So the credit offtake is less, the job losses are more, the rupee is falling and breached 80, and with a massive intervention it has just clawed back a little bit. Where is the economy heading? What are the implications of this?
See, we are living in a world of illusion and lies. Last year, the capex ratio was 11%. Today, the finance ministry issued a little graph which said that capital expenditure has gone up to 19%. Now, how do you get 8% more? Your companies have not made money, so they are not investing back. Foreign investment is not coming in. Government budgets are getting tighter and tighter. So where is the money coming? So next thing is you fudge data, and then you say that is proposed. If a question is asked, I'm sure they will say, but this is what we intend to do this year. No, intend to do and what
But
you
you see,
did.
data credibility of India, which used to be very high,
Absolutely.
is no more.
Nobody trusts it.
Nobody trusts it.
Nobody trusts it.
It's as bad as the Chinese data.
Chinese data at least has very little water in it.
Yeah.
You know, Chinese say that we have to always add little milk, water and milk. So ours is little more
Yeah.
water in it, maybe very little water, very little milk in it. It's like Birbal's pot of milk, you know.
Yeah.
So we can't trust them. You know, we don't know where we are functioning. You know, our classes, the upper middle class, anglicized upper middle class particularly, we don't really suffer very much. We are proof against inflation, against joblessness, we're okay. But it's the people who have nothing, the unpropertied classes of this country, 40%.
That really brings me to this question, Mohan. Why is the government not being asked questions about this 80 rupees a dollar? Why the government is not answering? Why the civil society, then the media, the so-called think tanks, etc., etc., why are they not calling out the government? Why are they not making the government accountable to this? Because you see, it is this ruling party, it is this political party, it is this government which has made, you know, fall of rupee, the fall in the value of the rupee politicized. Otherwise, you know, a serious economist like you and me would really consider the valuation, the devaluation or the depreciation of rupee regime agnostic. You know, it could have been done under Nehru, it could have been done under Indira Gandhi, it could have been done under Manmohan Mohan Singh, it could have been under Narasimha Rao, anything. But then fall of rupee is directly linked to the competence of the leadership, the corruption of the leadership, you know, and what does the government today, what does the Prime Minister today, what does the ruling party today tell us? What do they want us to believe?
You see, they have trivialized the debate, what should have been a very serious debate on how this country will spend its money, how it will live, and what it will do, has now become equated with false honor, false pride. And you know, we get this kind of spurious debate. Rupee gir raha hai, rupee ut raha hai, you know, that kind of stuff. It is not going to solve our problems. You got to solve basic fundamental problems. Capital expenditure, deal with it seriously. That means we are not collecting all our taxes. So look at our under collection of taxes. This is not the time you give a tax cut and thinking that it will stimulate it. It didn't even do that in America. You're not going to do it here. So these are things which we need to therefore discuss and debate this seriously. But like you said, where is the avenue? Who owns the TV channels in the country?
You know, to me what is worrying, I tell you, if there is no incentive for the government, for the ruling elite, the ruling party to deliver on the economy, then they won't. You see, today, you know, however bad the employment situation, however bad the inflation situation, however bad the COVID management, whatever is the economy, you know, the rural distress and all these, in spite of all that, politically, the government and the ruling party are in an unassailable situation, unassailable position. Therefore, when the economy is doing badly, when the government is not punished for it, then there is no incentive for them to deliver.
You know, I had invested a lot in talking about demonetization, though it was not demonetization, it was just a note currency swap, and how it cost the economy. And you know, the figure of 2.2 to 2.5 originally came out from a non-official Deccan Dialogue, and we came up with it, and it been picked up all over the country, and we actually lost little more than that. But within 4 months, UP elections came,
Yes.
And they said, no, nothing wrong with
Exactly,
this.
exactly.
You know, people
So
have voted for us.
The
Therefore,
ruling
we are right.
dispensation has no incentive. It's not being punished.
And
It's not being called into account.
I always tell them, but even Hitler won his elections, you know, and he came to power by winning elections,
Yeah.
not by seizing power in a push.
So which means, you know, identity politics is taking precedence over performance, economy, job creation, you know, control of prices, inflation.
But, you know, I lived through a time in 84 when Rajiv Gandhi came to power with 440 seats.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's going to be replicated ever. And in the parliament, you used to see only congressmen there. And they used to cheer every time an opposition leader stood up to speak, they would hoot him down. Saying, you got defeated, you're nobody.
The leader of the opposition was TDP.
Yeah,
Principal opposition was TDP.
And consisting mostly of ex-congressmen.
Yeah.
But nobody was there in parliament. There was no Vajpayee, no Chandrasekhar, no Advani, nobody. Lok Sabha used to be empty, no George Fernandez. And Rajiv Gandhi and his cohorts used to behave that they're going to rule for the next 50 years. You know, this government is only talking about 2050. And suddenly saw a turn of events. In 3 years, 4 years, things began to turn very rapidly. Then nothing that Prime Minister with 440 seats could do would be right. The mood of people change. And that is the real danger of a democracy, when you think that you're doing exceptionally well. And Rajiv also won state after state.
Yeah.
And suddenly it goes. The magic goes. Magic will disappear one day. I'm pretty sure of it. It might be 2 years or 1 year or 5 years. But it is going to go. Because you can't say $5 trillion, $20 trillion, $30 trillion, talk about a future and an afterlife. Who's interested in $30 trillion when you're not going to be there? So I think truth will catch up. But what is it going to cost this country?
Yeah.
It's going to cost the country. In the last 5 years, we've had practically no economic growth. We've been at the same level. If you look at the graphs, which you project.
No, you see, we have not gone back to pre-COVID days.
Absolutely.
Yet.
And you can forget about those awful Congress years, which today everybody says, years of corruption and deceit. We have posted 9% GDP growth on an average.
Yes.
We'll never get that back. And unless we are doing that, your $30 trillion, $40 trillion, forget about it.
A minimum of 8% annual
Absolutely.
growth in order to stay where we are.
Absolutely. We're not,
let alone $5 trillion.
And therefore get back to the basics.
Yeah.
Invest more, get more investment, reduce your trade deficits. All these are basics. You are taught in the first 2 months of macroeconomics. And those principles apply all your life.
Mohan, I think we should also talk about today about our new president-elect.
Actually, I am very excited by it. I wrote in 2017 proposing her, particular person, Rupee Murmu, she was the governor of Bihar, as president. Everybody said, you must be mad. I said, look, the Adivasis of this country have suffered the most in this country. Not one constitutional promise has been kept to them. They were supposed to get self-governing areas. All these things, nothing happened. We're destroying their culture. We're not even agreeing that their religion is their religion. We're saying they're Hindus. Joel Orao, the previous Minister for Tribal Affairs, was actually moved out because he said Sarnaism is a separate religion, but it can coexist with Hinduism. Now, he lost his job because of that. And you're destroying the identity. In Telangana, the Gonds are forced to speak Telugu or educated in Telugu. In Chhattisgarh, it's Hindi. In Madhya Pradesh, it's Hindi. In Odisha, it's Oriya. So they have no identity. You're destroying them culturally. You're destroying their gods. You're destroying their habitats. Tribal areas, majority areas, are supposed to be partly self-governing.
Oh, yes.
And the governor was supposed to administer them directly
Yeah.
and write a report annually to the president of India saying that this is what happened in our tribal regions. It's all there in the constitution. And we haven't done it. And we're systematically crushing them. If you take a person's identity off, what is left? So when today a woman who's came up obviously the hard way, says, I'm a Santal, I'm proud of it. And that to me is a big event. Whether Modi did it or whether TR did it, doesn't matter. She is there and asserting her identity. And I'm seeing when all the people I meet, who are, a lot of these Adivasi activists who are in touch with me, they're all excited by it. Even the Gonds are excited. Saying one of us has become.
I'm as happy as you are. But if you allow me, I would like to be a bit politically incorrect. Please don't mind me saying this. I'm very happy that Madam Draupadi Murmu is our president-elect now. But you see, somewhere, an identity politics is smuggled into the office of the president today. Okay, we have had a scheduled caste person as the president. Now the scheduled tribes woman as the president. That's fine. But what happened to the scheduled caste community during the 5 years of President Ramnath Kovind? Now, if I were a scheduled caste and I feel I'm very excited about my caste person being in the Rashtrapati Bhavan, to a limited extent, yes, that's fine. But what really matters is what happens to that community during the incumbency of that particular person. Now, if you look at that way, is identity more important, the presence is more important, or representation is more important? Now, making Draupadi Murmu an Adivasi woman as the President of India sends a huge signal, a welcome signal. I would be very happy, as excited as you are, at the end of the 5th year of this presidency, when the lives of Adivasis do undergo a very material change. The kind of oppression that you see in the tribal areas, the kind of mining mafia, that is really breathing down their their lives in these tribal areas. If they cease, and if there is a lot of developmental dynamism in these areas,
nothing will happen quickly.
Well, I am not saying that it will happen quickly, but then would putting a tribal person in Rashtrapati Bhavan, would that really translate would that really translate into a very paradigmatic shift in the lives of the people?
It won't.
Or is it just for a month a tribal will be very happy and excited about my tribal sitting in Rashtrapati Bhavan?
The President of India's job is very symbolic. There is nothing, no power.
So, ultimately it comes to making a symbolic gesture.
Symbols are very important in this country.
It is important.
And this lady comes with a track record. She has a record as governor of Jharkhand, returning 2 bills.
I have immense respect for her. I have immense respect and appreciation for the kind of career that she had.
No. She returned 2 bills which affect forest areas. And she told the BJP government, I want you to go back and look at this again. And as long as she was governor, the bills never came back.
I wish she does that kind of a thing.
When presidents do it, I was in government for that brief period when President Narayanan sent back the nominations of 3 Supreme Court judges.
Yeah.
With a simple handwritten note put on a paper clip to the Prime Minister saying that, could you not find anybody from
a single
person from the Dalit or SC or ST? Question mark sent it back. The government wasn't dizzy. The Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, everybody met, Cabinet Committee on political affairs, all met. Saying, what are we to do about this?
You know,
The president has that symbolism.
oh yes, that's very important. I wish our president does this, continues this kind of a tradition. Another thing is, I would be very happy on the day when the ruling party, this party or another party, whatever ruling party in future, makes a Dalit or an Adivasi not just the president or the governor, but the chief ministers.
Absolutely.
And
we've had
ministers in the
we've
union
had
cabinet, ministers in the state cabinets.
Prabhakar,
You
don't
see,
forget.
state cabinets, you have an Adivasi looking after the Adivasi
No,
affairs.
but you see, Hemant Soren is Chief Minister of Jharkhand.
Oh, but that is not the.
And his father Shibu Soren was Chief
Yeah,
Minister.
that is not a symbolic gesture by a ruling party.
Yeah, they won it.
It is there.
You see, they played their cards well,
Yes, yes.
marshaled it well,
Ah.
and
No, what I'm talking about, I'm making a very limited point, a pointed one, a specific one, that instead of elevating these people to very symbolic kind of an offices.
President is a little more symbolic than normal symbolic. It is a pedestal. It's a pulpit. You stand on it and talk, people will listen.
Yeah.
You force the country to listen. And you got the first time somebody who's that pulpit. And that is what I find exciting.
I'm really hopeful, but I would wait for 5 years.
Yes.